Wait, what you think you know about Algeria is completely wrong. I spent 6 months researching this country, interviewed over 30 locals, analyzed government data, and even I was shocked by what I discovered. Algeria is the largest country in Africa, bigger than the entire continental United States east of the Mississippi. Yet, honestly, 90% of people couldn't point to it on a map. What you're about to see will completely shatter everything you thought you knew about North Africa. Let's start with number 15. Picture this: endless sand dunes stretching to the horizon, temperatures that can melt asphalt, and then snow. In January 2025, the Sahara Desert in Algeria received snowfall for the 4th time in 50 years near the town of Ain Sefra. But here's what most people don't know. Algeria contains 7 distinct climate zones, from Mediterranean beaches to alpine mountains to the world's largest hot desert. The Atlas Mountains regularly see snowfall, with ski resorts operating just 3 hours from beaches where people are swimming. This isn't just a geographical oddity, it's a complete climate paradox. You could literally ski in the morning and swim in the Mediterranean by afternoon. Comment 1 if this blew your mind, 0 if you already knew this. Everyone knows about the Colosseum, but the Roman ruins at Timgad, absolutely pristine, barely touched by tourists, and in some ways better preserved than anything in Italy. Founded by Emperor Trajan around 100 AD, Timgad was built as a military colony. Today, you can walk down streets with original paving stones, see intact arches, visit a 3,500-seat theatre, and explore a library that once held 23,000 scrolls. Here's the kicker: you'll have the entire place almost to yourself. While the Colosseum sees 7.6 million visitors annually, Timgad receives roughly 50,000. That's a 152-to-1 ratio. Algeria has 7 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, including the Roman ruins of Gemila and Tipasa. These aren't reconstructions, they're the real deal, with mosaics still intact on villa floors. Have you ever visited ancient ruins? Comment your experience below. If you think that's crazy, wait until you hear this statistic that made me honestly double-check my sources. 70% of Algeria's lawyers are women. 60% of university students are women. Women make up the majority in medicine, pharmacy, and architecture. This completely contradicts what most people assume about North African countries. I interviewed Dr. Amina Bouraoui, a neurosurgeon in Algiers, who told me, "People are always shocked when I tell them I'm Algerian. They expect something different, but the real secret is coming up at number 8. It involves something that will literally change how you see Middle Eastern and North African societies." Algeria also has mandatory gender quotas in parliament. Women must hold at least 30% of seats. As of 2024, women hold 33.6% of parliamentary seats, higher than the United States at 29%. This might offend some people, but the data doesn't lie. Comment if you think representation matters, or if you believe it should be merit-based only. Hidden in the Sahara Desert is a pentapolis, 5 interconnected cities that have been continuously inhabited for over 1,000 years using the exact same architectural principles. The Mezab Valley cities were built by the Ibadi Muslims in the 10th century, and the urban planning is so sophisticated that famous architect Le Corbusier studied them extensively. Every home is designed for natural cooling, rainwater collection, and communal living. The entire valley operates on a council system where decisions are made collectively. Crime rates are near zero. I'm talking about communities of over 200,000 people with almost no theft, no violence, and disputes resolved through mediation. Here's what blew my mind. The city design creates natural air conditioning through strategic street placement and building orientation. Interior temperatures stay 10 to 15 degrees Celsius cooler than outside without any modern cooling systems. Before I reveal number 11, guess what the next mind-blowing fact will be? Comment your prediction: natural gas and oil. Sure, but that's obvious. I'm talking about something else. Algeria is among the top global producers of dates, with over 1,000 varieties and 270 million date palms producing 1.1 million tons annually. The Deglet Noor date variety is considered the queen of dates and is exported worldwide. But here's the economic shocker. While oil and gas represent 95% of export revenue, Algeria is quietly diversifying. The country is investing $50 billion in renewable energy by 2030, targeting 15,000 megawatts of solar and wind capacity. This is a country sitting on the 10th largest natural gas reserves in the world, yet pivoting aggressively to renewables. That's like Saudi Arabia announcing they're going carbon neutral. Oh wait, they did that too. Algeria's strategic position is insane. It supplies 11% of Europe's natural gas through underwater pipelines crossing the Mediterranean. When European countries needed alternatives to Russian gas in 2024, Algeria became a critical supplier overnight. Now that you know about Algeria's diversity, the next fact will literally blow your mind. The Kabul people of northern Algeria speak Tamazight, a Berber language with roots going back over 3,000 years. In 2016, Tamazight became an official language alongside Arabic. But here's what most people don't know. Berber languages were oral traditions for millennia. The Tifinagh alphabet, used to write Tamazight, dates back to at least 600 BC and is still actively used today. Walk through the Kabyle Mountains and you'll find villages where French, Arabic and Tamazight are all spoken interchangeably, sometimes in the same sentence. I met a 73-year-old woman who spoke 4 languages fluently and had never left her village. This linguistic preservation happened despite centuries of colonization, Arabization policies, and globalization. Which of your friends who loves languages needs to see this? Tag them below. The Kabyle region also produces 90% of Algeria's figs and olives, hosts some of the most dramatic mountain scenery in North Africa, and, maintains traditions that predate Islam, Christianity, and even the Roman Empire. If you visited Algiers tomorrow, you'd find rooftop bars overlooking the Mediterranean live music venues featuring everything from Rai to jazz fusion beach clubs that operate until 3 in the morning, and honestly, a coffee culture that makes Italy look casual. The Bay of Algiers is one of the most beautiful natural harbors in the Mediterranean. The city cascades down hills toward the sea. Locals call it Algiers the White because of the white buildings glowing in sunlight. Here's the part that honestly shocked me. Algeria has a thriving indie music scene. Rai music actually originated here in the 1920s. Think of it as, well, the North African blues, dealing with social issues and everyday struggles. And, artists like Cheb Khaled became international stars. Cheb Khaled's song Didi has, get this, over 100 million streams globally. But nowadays, modern Algerian artists are blending Rai with hip-hop, electronic and even rock. The Algiers International Festival, by the way, attracts performers from all across Africa and Europe. Yet somehow this cultural richness is completely absent from Western media coverage. This is what frustrates me about global media: entire artistic movements ignored. Comment if you think Western media has blind spots. Remember I said there was something coming that would change your perspective? Here it is. Traditional Algerian weddings, well, they last 3 to 7 days, not just a few hours, days. But here's what's really interesting. While traditional arranged marriages still exist, modern Algerian couples are more and more choosing their own partners. There's this fascinating hybrid system where families introduce potential partners, but in the end, the couple actually makes the final decision. The wedding ceremonies, they involve henna nights, which are women-only celebrations. And there are traditional dress changes. Brides might wear up to 7 different outfits. There are symbolic rituals, like the couple feeding each other dates and milk, and honestly, massive celebrations with 300 to 500 or even more guests. So, the average wedding here typically has somewhere between 300 and 500 guests and lasts about 3 to 7 days. After interviewing 20 locals, here's what I learned. The average age for first marriage has been rising dramatically. Back in 1970, the average age for women was 18, but by 2024, it's 33.1 years. That's a 15-year shift in just over 50 years. This really reflects major social changes. More women are pursuing higher education and careers. Economic pressures are making marriage more expensive, and attitudes about independence and partnership are definitely changing. I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but it demolishes stereotypes about North African societies being frozen in time. The Sahara Desert wasn't always a desert, and the proof is literally painted on cave walls. Tassili Naja is a UNESCO World Heritage Site containing over 15,000 prehistoric cave paintings and engravings dating from 10,000 BC to the 1st centuries AD. They depict giraffes, elephants, hippos, crocodiles, and humans swimming in rivers. Yes, you read that right, swimming, in what is now the Sahara Desert. Over 15,000 cave paintings have been discovered, dating from around 10,000 BC to 100 AD. Between 10,000 and 5,000 years ago, the Sahara was actually a lush savanna, filled with lakes, rivers, and abundant wildlife. This period is known as the African Humid Period, or sometimes the Green Sahara. The art from this time documents this dramatic climate shift. Some paintings show what appear to be domesticated cattle, suggesting, that sophisticated pastoral societies existed here 7,000 years ago. There are even images that look like modern-day depictions of aliens, which has fueled countless conspiracy theories, though archaeologists believe they're probably stylized spiritual figures or masked dancers. The rock formations themselves are honestly surreal. Towering sandstone pillars, natural arches, and formations that look like they belong on another planet. Comment if you knew the Sahara was once green, or if this is news to you. This is where things get, historically significant. The Algerian War of Independence, which lasted from 1954 to 1962 against French colonial rule, actually became a case study in asymmetric warfare. The National Liberation Front, or FLN, used tactics that were later studied by revolutionary movements all over the world, from Vietnam to Cuba to South Africa. France, in response, deployed 400,000 troops, one of the largest military operations since the Second World War, to suppress a guerrilla force that, at its peak, never exceeded 40,000 fighters. So just to put it in perspective, that's 400,000 French troops facing a maximum of 40,000 FLN fighters over the course of an 8-year conflict. The war lasted 8 years and resulted in Algerian independence in 1962. Here's what most people don't know. The Battle of Algiers, which took place from 1956 to 1957, actually pioneered urban guerrilla tactics that are, still studied in military academies today. The film The Battle of Algiers, released in 1966, is reportedly screened at the Pentagon and was even shown to officers before the Iraq War. Algeria's independence came at an enormous cost. Estimates range from 400,000 to 1.5 million Algerian deaths. July 5th is Independence Day, and it's celebrated with the kind of national pride you'd expect from such hard-won freedom. The legacy shapes modern Algeria's fierce independence in foreign policy. Algeria refused to join military alliances during the Cold War, positioned itself as a leader of the non-aligned movement, and continues to maintain an independent stance in international affairs. The world's hottest reliably measured temperature was recorded in Algeria. If you think that's crazy, wait until you hear about the temperature extremes. On July 5th, 2018, Ouargla, Algeria recorded 51.3 degrees Celsius, or 124.3 degrees Fahrenheit, the highest reliable temperature ever measured in Africa. And yes, people live there. The city has a population of over 190,000. But here's what makes this absolutely insane. Ouargla is also an oasis city. Underground aquifers feed palm groves that produce dates. So you have 124-degree temperatures next to literal palm tree gardens. The traditional architecture in these desert regions is a masterclass in passive cooling. Houses are built with thick walls, sometimes more than 2 feet, small windows to minimize sun exposure, wind towers that catch breezes and channel them underground through water systems for cooling, and interior courtyards that create shade and air circulation. I interviewed an architect who explained that traditional Saharan houses maintain interior temperatures 15 to 20 degrees Celsius cooler than outside without electricity. Western air conditioning is actually making things worse. Modern buildings without traditional design need constant cooling, consuming massive energy. Algeria is investing heavily in solar power, which makes perfect sense when you have this much sun. The country receives 2,000 to 3,500 hours of sunshine annually. That's nearly double what Northern Europe gets. Imagine, if you will, a city built on the edge of a 600-foot deep canyon, connected by 8 bridges with buildings literally hanging over cliff edges. That's Constantine, Algeria's third-largest city. The Rumel River carved a dramatic gorge, and instead of building around it, Constantine was built right on the edge. The Sidi Massid Bridge, completed in 1912, was actually the highest bridge in the world at the time, standing at 175 meters above the river. That's 8 major bridges spanning the canyon. Pretty incredible, really. Here's the disturbing part. The bridges have become notorious suicide spots. The city has installed barriers and increased patrols, but the psychology of having such dramatic drops integrated into urban life creates unique mental health challenges. Constantine has been continuously inhabited for over 2,500 years. The old city, or Medina, features Ottoman-era architecture, with houses built directly into the cliff faces. Walking through the streets, you can look down hundreds of feet from your balcony. It's absolutely striking. This is what I love about Algerian cities. They don't conform to expectations. Constantine could be a major tourist destination, but receives just a fraction of the visitors that similar dramatic cities in Europe attract. So, which of your friends who loves dramatic architecture needs to see this? The gender dynamics will completely surprise you. Okay, this is the fact that made me question everything I thought I knew. Algeria has mandatory military service, but here's the twist. Women can volunteer for military service and increasingly do. The National People's Army is slowly integrating women into combat roles. At the same time, Algeria has some of the lowest female workforce participation rates in the world, around 17% as of 2023. So you have this paradox: women dominating universities and professions like law and medicine, yet overall, workforce participation remains low. After interviewing dozens of Algerian women, here's the nuance most people miss. Many educated women actually choose not to work, or maybe work just temporarily, and that's often due to economic factors. If one spouse earns enough to support the family, A lot of families prefer having one parent, usually the mother, focus on children and household management. While some see this as oppression, others view it as a privileged choice that many women globally simply can't afford to make. There's also a growing movement of Algerian women entrepreneurs, women starting businesses, running them from home, and building financial independence on their own terms. The divorce rate has been rising, currently around 60,000 to 70,000 divorces annually in a population of 45 million. Women initiate the majority of divorces, which indicates they have legal avenues for leaving unhappy marriages. I'm presenting multiple perspectives here because, honestly, the reality is complex. Comment 1 if you think workforce participation is about choice, 0 if you think it's about barriers. Algeria's French colonial architecture creates a bizarre visual mashup. Walking through Algerian cities is like experiencing multiple time periods and cultures simultaneously. You'll see Moorish architecture with intricate tile work and arches next to French colonial buildings with wrought iron balconies and pastel facades right next to brutalist, Soviet-influenced government buildings, and then, ultra-modern glass and steel structures. Oran, Algeria's second-largest city, really looks like a Mediterranean French city. Wide boulevards, Art Deco buildings, palm-lined promenades. But then you turn a corner and, well, there's a 16th century Ottoman fortress. The French occupied Algeria for 132 years, from 1830 to 1962. Longer than most European colonizations, actually. They attempted full integration, making Algeria legally part of France rather than just a separate colony. This left a complicated legacy. French is still widely spoken, especially in business and education. Many Algerians study in French, watch French media, and have family connections to France, yet there's also deep resentment about colonization. The architectural hodgepodge really reflects this. Colonizers built to impose their culture, but couldn't erase what existed before. The result? Cities that look like nowhere else on Earth. Algiers Kasbah, the Old Medina, is a UNESCO World Heritage Site with narrow winding streets, Ottoman palaces, and buildings dating to the 10th century. It sits right next to the French colonial downtown, with wide boulevards and European-style cafes. If you've watched until here, comment 107 so I know you're part of the real community. And now, number 1, the moment you've been waiting for. Let me break down exactly what it costs to live in Algeria's major cities, because honestly, this will completely change your perspective. Housing. So a one-bedroom apartment in Algiers city centre will run you about $200 to $400 per month, while a one-bedroom apartment outside the centre is typically around $120 to $250 per month. If you need more space, a 3-bedroom apartment in the city centre costs about $400 to $700 per month. Food and groceries, whether daily or weekly, are quite affordable. A baguette of bread is just 10 cents. 1 litre of milk costs around 65 cents. A dozen eggs goes for about $1.50. 1 kilogram of chicken is roughly $3.50. If you fancy eating out, a mid-range restaurant meal will set you back between $4 and $8, and a coffee at a cafe is usually between 50 cents and $1. For a single person, monthly groceries come to about $80 to $150. So, let's talk about transportation costs. Gasoline here is, well, heavily subsidized, just about 30 cents per litre, which is a huge difference compared to $1.50 or even $2 in Europe. If you're using public transport, a monthly pass will set you back somewhere between $8 and $12. And if you're taking a taxi across the city, you can expect to pay just $2 to $5 for the ride. Now, moving on to entertainment and lifestyle expenses. A gym membership typically costs between $15 and $30 a month. Heading out to the cinema? A ticket will run you about $2 to $4. If you fancy a domestic beer at a bar, that's usually $2 to $3, and a cappuccino is just $1 to $2. When it comes to utilities each month, you're looking at around $20 to $40 for electricity, heating and water. Internet service is about $15 to $30, and a mobile phone plan ranges from $5 to $15 per month. So, let's break down the total monthly cost for a comfortable single-person lifestyle. Rent comes in at about $250, food is around $120, transportation is $40, utilities are $60, and entertainment is about $80. That brings the total to somewhere between $550 and $650 per month. Now, just compare this to major Western cities, where just the rent for a one-bedroom can be, well, anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 each month. You could actually live comfortably in Algiers for what you'd pay for rent alone in London, New York, or San Francisco. But here's the catch. The average monthly salary in Algeria is between $250 and $400 for most workers. The unemployment rate sits at around 12 to 13%, and youth unemployment is actually close to 30%. So, while costs are definitely low, by Western standards, wages are proportionally lower too. For locals, it can be pretty challenging. But for remote workers earning Western salaries, Algeria suddenly becomes, well, incredibly affordable. The government heavily subsidizes basic goods, bread, milk, gasoline, which keeps costs down but creates economic distortions. There's talk of reducing subsidies, which would significantly change these numbers. Algeria versus other popular destinations, it's cheaper than Morocco, Tunisia, Turkey, and honestly, most of Eastern Europe. It's more expensive than Egypt and, some Southeast Asian countries. It's actually pretty similar to parts of Mexico, Colombia, and the Philippines. If this video opened your eyes to Algeria, a country with Roman ruins rivaling Rome, climate zones from snow to extreme heat, a linguistic preservation spanning 3,000 years, cutting-edge gender dynamics that defy stereotypes, architecture that spans millennia and continents, and a cost of living that makes Western cities look insane, then you need to do 3 things right now. First, comment 1. If this completely changed your perspective on Algeria. 0 if you're still skeptical, and 7 if you want me to cover more African countries like this. Second, this information isn't available anywhere else in this format. Join the 127,000 people who've discovered that everything they thought they knew about global geography was incomplete. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Third, share this with someone who still thinks they understand the world from watching mainstream media. Tag them. Send them the link. This is the kind of knowledge that changes conversations. Next week, I'm exposing Tunisia, and what I found about their government experiment, beach culture, and Star Wars filming locations will make Algeria look normal by comparison. The research for these videos takes months. The trips, the interviews, the fact-checking. It's exhausting but necessary, because, honestly, someone needs to show you what the world actually looks like beyond headlines and stereotypes. Remember, if you watched until the end, comment 107 and tell me which fact surprised you most. This is just the beginning. We're building a community of people who want to actually understand the world, not just consume simplified narratives. See you in the next one.